Welcome to Sunday night prime time, the Jacobson Report. John Jacobson here on KOFO, the home and away voice of the Kansas City Royals, your home and away voice of Ottawa Braves. In here tonight with Blake Griffin and Sean Torres. We've got a great 2-hour block for you on this first segment, the Jacobson Report. We are sponsored by Midwest Renewable Energy, LLC, Energy for a Strong America, renewable fuels, ethanol, out of Nebraska. It's lean, it's clean, and it's green, undergirding ag families with revenue streams, keeping our food supply owned and operated not by corporatists, but by thousands of farm families across the Midwestern states here, and keeping away from Mid-East oil and making America self-sufficient. Midwest Renewable Energy, LLC, Energy for a Strong America. And also sponsored by Jim and Cindy Jandrin and the great people at Life Runners. Go to liferunners.org and get your free t-shirt like the lovely and gracious Mrs. Jacobson. Walk and run for life. Walk and run for your health. But more importantly, walk and run to defend life from womb to tomb, helping expectant mothers and their preborn infants. Liferunners.org. Here we go. John Jacobson here with you in beautiful Midwest USA. We are doing the post-election analysis, bringing back for their curtain call kudos, Kip and Sheila Murphy. Kip and Sheila, we called this thing with precision before the election, and it's time to do a victory lap because you were going on years of wisdom gained by experiential knowledge. I was not following polls. I was following those 73 million votes that had been banked on Sunday when we made that final call last week at Trump circa 300 electoral votes and winning the popular vote and winning the Senate and House. And Sheila, how did we get it right when all of the pollsters were wrong again this year, especially Ann Seltzer?
That Ann Seltzer. Excuse me, I have a little laryngitis from excessive victory cheering. But, we got it right and they all got it wrong because we were listening to the people and they were trying to use their positions to further a personal agenda. And we were simply listening to the people and reflecting what we saw the people wanted.
Sheila and Kip, yours truly here in his middle 60s has been graced to live through 17 American presidential elections. I remember 15 very clearly as I was watching the Nixon-Humphrey Wallace returns in '68 with my father in eastern Iowa. And as I told my classes at the university, in my experience, it's been kind of a Seinfeldian even Steven, a 50-50 world. In my 64 years, I've lived 32 under a Democrat White House, 32 under a Republican White House. And just prior to this election, I had seen 8 Democratic victories, 8 Republican victories. So very, very interesting. Sheila, I'm going to proffer something. I want you to tell me if I'm right or wrong. This is the single most significant watershed election since Ronald Reagan's 44-state sweep over Jimmy Carter in 1980. Not only because of the degree of the victory, the coattails to Senate and House, going up against the entire cabal, the military-industrial establishment, the big pharma cabal, the media cabal, the Hollywood cabal, all of the Epstein friends and the P. Diddy friends, and just international forces, Soros forces, prosecutors that were going rogue, judges that were not correctly applying laws, and yet talk about a phoenix rising from the ashes. Donald Trump writing not just the art of the deal, but the art of the comeback. Everybody always forgets that. Sheila, he improved his vote totals hugely among Jewish voters, Muslim voters, Catholic voters. Incredible. The Amish voters. The Amish came out 100,000 margin in Pennsylvania. That helped pad his Pennsylvania margin. The Muslims in Dearborn, Michigan, the largest concentration of Muslims in the United States, come out heavily for Trump, 100,000, padding his margin in Michigan. Catholic voters, for the first time ever in the history of the Republic, a Republican candidate carries them by over 10 points, 15 percentage points. And you and I called it Whitmer was going to kill the Catholic vote in those industrial Big Ten states. The Jewish voters, because of the anti-Israel animus that was proffered by Harris and Harris's stepdaughter, who is raising money for the other side, Jewish voters go more than ever toward Trump. And black men in this country, 100% higher Republican voting, 25% of black men voted for Trump. How huge is this, Sheila? I had always complained to you that the Republican Party didn't know how to put together a coalition, that only one election cycle since 1988 had they won the popular vote. Boy, they're back in the popular vote mode, a 5 million vote cushion. I think it's more because many of those votes in California that will go to Harris are just outright fraudulent illegal votes.
Yes, this was incredibly huge, John. I mean, you covered most bases there. This was significant in that it reflected, to me, an overall weariness. The left pushed everything, all the fronts that you mentioned, they pushed each and every one of them too far. And what we saw was the people rearing up their heads and saying, we've had enough of this. We're tired. People are tired of being pushed around, spoon-fed improper news reports and spoon-fed their attitudes by celebrities and social media. This was bigger than any election we've ever had because it went far beyond politics.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right. Kip, I think your sister's touching on something. This went beyond politics. It's touching the very cultural core of Americana.
Well, and also you've got to look at the reaction. Some of the people on the Democratic side, they're not looking at that their policies went wrong. They're looking at that they didn't control the news media enough. There was no control over podcasts.
Isn't it unbelievable?
And,
Isn't it unbelievable?
And they were saying they're pushing this disinformation and that the government must step in to regulate podcasts.
Yeah, of course. It's because they can't debate ideologically. They're based solely in raw emotionalism, which is irrational. They cannot win a debate. They know it. They know free speech is their enemy. They know fair elections are their enemy. Do you realize that in every state Trump won, there's voter ID, and in almost every single state that Trump lost, there is not voter ID. And right now, they are stealing races to this moment in Arizona and Nevada. The leftist machine is still that brazen. Not to mention California, which is off the charts. Back to you guys.
Well,
Yeah.
Go ahead, Sheila.
And I was just going to say, nationally, we're hearing that. I mean, this is recognized that voter ID was the single greatest administrative factor in this victory is that the states where there is no ID, Harris won. And we're hearing everybody is coming to that realization. And that's only going to help us in future efforts to make the voting fair.
Sheila,
And also,
I
you gotta
agree.
look at-
Kip, before I go to you, I agree because they were starting to pull the stunt again. I was in here with Sean Torres after midnight on election night. We saw big semis with out-of-state plates that they were trying to roll into Michigan and Pennsylvania, saying they were filled with ballot boxes. And funny thing, now that Whatley and Lara Trump have this aggressive stance at the National Republican headquarters of actually fighting back and having lawyers in place, they nipped a whole lot of bad stuff in the bud because there were tremendous voter suppression efforts going on against Republican voters in those battleground states. Pennsylvania, for instance, where literally police officers sworn to uphold the law in Pennsylvania were shutting down Republican area voting precincts and illegally sending home Republican voters for early voting. The Republicans got in and they were able to interdict that. The courts supported the law, reopened those polling sites. Georgia was going to be doing secret counting and kick out all of the Republican observers in Georgia. They sued. They had to let them back in. And those big semis with supposedly trundle drawers full of mailed-in ballots, they didn't get counted. Isn't that amazing how it works when you have a good legal team in place and you're proactive, not reactive? How much better of a job did the National GOP do? I had a Democrat consultant friend scoff at our Get Out the Vote effort saying you can't offload those to private entities. Well, I'd say Charlie Kirk and Elon Musk did a pretty good job of getting out the vote. Riff on this for a little, Sheila and Kip.
Yes, they did an excellent job getting out the vote, but more importantly, they had people in there early on doing voter registration. And when you get people to register, they're more likely to vote for you.
Yep.
It's very common sense.
Yep.
But also when it's coming to counting the vote right now, I mean, it's ridiculous right now that California, Arizona, and because of that stupid ranked choice voting, Alaska, still can't decide their election.
Yeah, well, it's called election stealing because the philosophy is you keep counting votes day after day after day until you get the votes that you need to beat the other guys. And it's absolutely ridiculous. Ron DeSantis in Florida had 17 million votes counted in 2 hours. The only excuse not to do that is to stuff ballot boxes and to rig them. And what's going on against our Senate candidate in Nevada and our Senate candidate in Arizona is shocking, and I demand a recount and I demand an audit. What say you guys?
Oh,
Oh, yes,
absolutely.
but I'm sorry to say it, but they'll have the ballots there to show in a recount because they just like you say, ship them in, and they have people coming in saying that they voted for them, and then other people say, well, they didn't vote, but that happened a few times. I heard where.
Yeah.
Well,
It's,
so 4 years ago, Sheila and Kip, I think you remember it. I was questioning the results, particularly in the Rust Belt, of the Biden-Trump race, and I got some pushback from the Democrats. So I decided to publish a paper using the Benford's Law of Scientific Mathematics and the Mabani second digit test. These are well-known anti-fraud detection types of theorems that have been proven to detect fraud in other situations. And I included about 36 different charts and graphs, including logarithmic formulas as well as regression lines. And the conclusion I came to was that there was no way those numbers could be what they purported to be in Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin. As many of us remember, part of the problem in Pennsylvania was mysteriously after midnight, they started counting late arriving illegally per the Pennsylvania statutes, 1.2 million supposed absentee ballots. Justice Alito from the Supreme Court ordered Pennsylvania not to mingle those votes and not to count them. Pennsylvania mingled them and counted them. These were votes that arrived after the legal time, after midnight on election night. 1.2 million of them. Shazam, 1 million plus went to Biden, but that's not the worst thing. So anyway, I believe I proved mathematically that those numbers could not have appeared, the Biden numbers in Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, looking at violations of Benford's Law and the Mabani second digit test. I think I've been further vindicated if you look at the banked early voting this year just in Pennsylvania. So this year, Republicans did a better job. I think they had 400,000+ that voted early. I'm not talking absentees, okay? We're not talking about mailed in late arriving absentees. We're talking early voting. We're talking like what Deb and I did. We went to the courthouse and voted early, or absentee ballots that come in early and can be counted early in terms of how many have arrived. In Pennsylvania this year, the Democrats were able to get about 583,000 or 683,000 early votes. But guess what? 4 years ago, they had 1.4 million early votes. Now, that means, is it possible that 750,000 people died in 4 years that were avid Democrat? No, actuarially, it wasn't even a fraction of that. Did those people end up showing up on election day? No, because we see the election day performance. Were they the late absentees, maybe even more than there were last time around? No, they were not there. So whose 750,000 votes disappeared, or was it that there never were 750,000 early votes in Pennsylvania 4 years ago? You look at the trajectory of the last 4 presidential cycles, everybody, even the most popular Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama, you take your pick. No one was above that 65 million vote level, with the exception of Donald J. Trump, got in the 70 millions. How in the world does Joe Biden have 81 million votes and Obama and Harris only at 65? I'm going to make the categorical supposition that Donald Trump has won 3 consecutive general elections. Prove me wrong.
Well, no, we can't prove you wrong. You can't actually make that statement, John. We can't go back and say that he was president for 4 years when he wasn't, because, well, that's unfair. Too much crap happened during those 4 years. And
I'm not saying he was president. I'm just saying he won 3 elections.
I can see that.
Yeah.
I can see that.
But you know, the most humorous thing about this is that because of the mathematical evidence that you produced and others now are beginning to understand, there are within the Democrat Party that are telling their brethren, hey, don't chill, back off a little. If we push this too far, people will start to realize what we did 4 years ago, and it will be very bad. So I think that's hilarious, actually.
I'm going to ask you for a couple questions here. There was some dreadful faux pas made by the Harris campaign. We said over a month ago, we both said, all 3 of us said it, Gretchen Whitmer was going to kill the Catholic vote in Ohio, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, because of the video she put out mocking Catholics and mocking Holy Communion. 40% of the electorate in Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, Wisconsin are either Catholics or fallen away Catholics, but were baptized and confirmed Catholics. Even those that have now joined other evangelical churches still have their Catholic sensibilities, the Catholic culture, the fear of the Lord, that reverence for Holy Communion. And then, of course, Harris dumps out and does not attend the charity fundraiser, the legendary Al Smith dinner, which honors Democrat Al Smith. And then, of course, Kamala, when our Lord's name is mentioned at the rally, she says to the folks in attendance, you're at the wrong rally. Was that just a self-inflicted wound that really cost those northern battleground states?
It was all self-inflicted, but you have to go even back farther than that. Think about when Kamala Harris was a senator. She tore into Catholics. She basically said that Catholics were not qualified to be in the government because they were Catholic.
Yeah, you're right, because you are familiar. You're from Nebraska. Judge Boucher was up for confirmation, and she basically thought he was disqualified because he was a member of Knights of Columbus. Now, those are those nice guys with the funny capes and swords that hand out Tootsie Rolls to help our intellectually disadvantaged kids and do all the charity fish fries and things like that. And shoot, she wouldn't let me run for office.
And in full disclosure, Kip was a Grand Knight in his chapter of the Knights of Columbus, so we're very familiar with it, but she termed them to be practically terrorists. But all the errors that you mentioned that were made only compounded an overall impression that the American public got of Kamala Harris, and that she had no religious faith. She never talked about God. She never talked about beliefs. And when you put that backdrop there in front of things like Whitmer's actions, then she has no defense. So it wasn't exactly an error. It was simply the fact that she did not ever present anything about faith in God or moral beliefs.
Well, I think you're onto something. I have a blood relative who is very near and dear to me. She did not vote for Trump in 16 or 20, but she was so appalled at the anti-Semitism on the part of the Harris campaign that she couldn't wait to vote and campaign for Trump in an eastern seaboard city this election. And of course, she was even miffed that Harris bypassed Shapiro for Walz. She thought there was an anti-Semitic attitude in refusing to pick Shapiro. I don't know if that's true, but electorally, I think, you and I were worried about Shapiro and Mark Kelly from Arizona. I breathed a sigh of relief when it was Walz, and I can't think of someone who is more of a drag on a ticket than Tim Walz.
Well, I totally agree with all of that, but also I see another factor at play in that I know China had a tremendous financial stake in the Harris victory, and they definitely want Walz. He's been very involved in China for a very long time.
He's almost the Manchurian candidate, almost.
Yeah, it was their chance to get their guy in, and of course they wanted that badly. So whatever was the reason, yes, Shapiro would have been dangerous. I'm glad that her anti-Semitism and Walz's Chinese connections kept him out.
Well, and the irony is that Shapiro didn't go to the mats with any election hijinks in Pennsylvania because he doesn't have a lot of love for Harris. He was hoping she would lose because he wants in 4 years. And the word on the street that continues to reverberate is that both Joe and Jill Biden voted for Donald Trump. Do you believe there's any credibility to that report?
Well, we'll never know. In America, we have a private vote, but it's quite humorous. Hey,
I have to step out, John.
Sure, Kip. Go right ahead, buddy. Thanks, Kip Murphy, for joining us. Sheila's going to stay with us for just a few more minutes. Go ahead, Sheila. Continue the thread.
Yeah, we'll never know how they voted, but I think that the Bidens will always be insulted by Kamala Harris's treatment of them.
Yeah.
For this election. I think she has never been a supportive vice president. And
Jill Biden was grinning like a Cheshire cat all of the Wednesday following the election, and it's kind of interesting. Biden has is extended a welcome to President Trump to visit next week. Sheila, how important was it? I believe there were two hinge factors in this race. Trump was down 4 or 5 points in the polls. The second that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. endorsed Donald Trump, the polls started bending back. The dream team began to come together. You can say Joe Rogan, you can say Megyn Kelly, you can say Vivek Ramaswamy, who was always there. You can say Tulsi Gabbard, who clearly was aligned with Bobby Kennedy. Nicole Shanahan, Kennedy's friend who made those brilliant Trump commercials and ads all during the campaign. Elon Musk. How huge was it? I mean, without Elon Musk and Twitter and X, I don't know how we get through that network censorious nature. You know how I've been fighting Zuckerberg for years. I'm winning, but I've had to work hard to keep ahead of his censoring attempts of me that he's utterly failed at on Facebook. But how huge was it, the 1-2 punch of Elon Musk and Bobby Kennedy, and now they are part of Team Trump to clean out the Aegean stables.
Yes, it was huge. I see this as a series of turning points. I would include in those important turning points the vice presidential campaign.
I love J.D. Vance. Isn't he absolutely superb?
He is, and I think, we discussed this in the past, that who the vice president was very important because there was such a spotlight on age in general in this campaign. And having a good, solid vice president was exceedingly important. And J.D. presenting himself as he did to the public, that changed a lot of minds that were afraid that Trump would get elected and vice president would take over, and it would not be good. But
yeah, he
really
totally disarmed the media lies about him that they had set up in that vice presidential debate. He eviscerated them.
He's a good communicator. And then, of course, you mentioned the alliance of people like Bobby Kennedy and Tulsi Gabbard. These alliances brought over a tremendous amount of independent votes.
Right.
Very, very. And then you get on Elon Musk balancing out the overflowing support that the Democrats have among the technological branch of corporate America. That did a lot to balance that out. So all these factors came into play, and they were exceedingly important.
And I'm going to give a shout out to a young man. He's 6'9". His name is Barron Trump. He played a key role in the campaign early on this summer. He told his dad that he needed to not worry about the traditional media, but to get on these podcasts, and recommended to his father, Donald J. Trump, what podcasts get on. Trump was a sensation on the podcasts. He went on many, and Rogan in particular was a triumph.
Yes, That was a very important event, and yes, Barron, that was great advice because America is changing. One of the major side effects that has come out of this victory is that the so-called major media, the networks, they have lost even more credibility. They are fading fast.
Yes, as well they should. And the pollsters with them. I think Ann Selzer, with her Iowa prediction, beclowned herself, saying that Harris was up by 3, Trump trounced her by 13. Every Iowa House of Representatives seat remained Republican, as did General Don Bacon's. We were correct to isolate on those 5 races on election night because those literally decided the outcome of the U.S. House of Representatives. That's going to end up being about a 218 to 217 split for the GOP, with some of the shenanigans going on and counting the Western United States House votes. Iowa and Nebraska, your election night coverage, Sheila, was brilliant online with us reporting from Iowa. Sheila, what do you think? With Sean Torres, my great engineer, in here with me, we were the first media outlet in the nation, television or radio, to correctly call with precision every state, the earliest in the nation, that Donald Trump would be president-elect of the United States. Go ahead, Sheila.
I think it's fantastic, and that, again, it demonstrated that even though we clearly had our outcomes that we wished to happen, we were also painstakingly trying to be accurate and correct and to view the actions of the people with objectivity. And many of the pollsters and things were not. And as far as the Des Moines Register poll, I think people should not forget an important factor. Pollsters are not trusted. People did not believe that they could say they supported Donald Trump and have their responses guarded confidentially.
Right.
This is a factor that must be addressed.
Yes, that's right.
This is what nobody wanted to say, that they were supporting Trump to a pollster. So most of the results were heavily skewed against Trump because nobody wants to be, as you said, targeted. 3
cycles in a row, they estimated the Trump support by 5%. That's an epic fail on the part of pollsters. In Sheila, I had some Democrat journalists talk to my statistics class before the election. All thought that Harris was in great shape. I kept quiet, wrote my prediction down, sealed it in an envelope. The students opened it on Wednesday morning, and guess who nailed the Electoral College total?
I don't have to guess.
And I didn't use polls. I used raw data from those banked 73 million votes. Always chase the data. Don't chase polls. Sheila Murphy, you're a rock star. Thanks for making our election night coverage #1 in the nation here from Ottawa. And we'll have you back on again soon.
Thank you very much, John and Sean. It's always a pleasure to join you.
Sheila Murphy, ladies and gentlemen, and we'll be back in just a second. Thanks again to our sponsors, Life Runners, liferunners.org, protecting life from womb to tomb. Get on liferunners.org, get your free t-shirt. They help expectant mothers and preborn infants. Also co-sponsor Midwest Renewable Energy, LLC, renewable fuels, ethanol energy for a strong America, running out of that great eastern Nebraska plant. Jim and Cindy Jandron. It's lean, it's clean, and it's green, helping our ag families with revenues, keeping our food supply here, owned and operated by farm families in the Midwest, not by big corporations, and avoiding those Mid-East dollars for imported oil. Midwest Renewable Energy, LLC. Guys, grab the podcast. Blake Griffin and Sean Torres here with me. Another wonderful day of engineering. In the meantime, be safe, be smart, be good, be strong. Love Jesus Christ. God bless us, everyone. And stay tuned for Maha coming up next.